Hello everyone. I hope you had a great lunch. In 2023, like 1.5 years back, when I started working for one of the project at Digital Polygon for front end. It was a very big company. I can't name it, but yeah, while working on that project, I came across design tokens. And that time I got to know that design tokens is not just for the designers, but how it can benefit developer and improve the workflow. So let me introduce myself. I am Asmita Wagh, working as a front-end developer, senior front-end developer at Digital Polygon. And apart from Drupal, I have worked on other CMS as well, like WordPress, Contentful, and recently I have ventured into HubSpot. So I have been active in Drupal community for past 7 years now. You can find me at Drupal camps in Pune and meetups that frequently happen in Pune. Along with me today, I have my friend and as a co-speaker, Nikita. Over to you.
Hello everyone. So if you have not attended my session yesterday, I'm Nikita Aswani, Senior Front-End Consultant. I help clients create accessible web design and design system. Thank you.
Okay, so before we dive into the main topic, that is the future of front-end development with design tokens, let me quickly tell you a bit about our project. When I started working on this project, the challenges I faced while working on it, and which led to where we are today. Like eventually I started using design tokens while working on it. So initially the website was built in Drupal 7 with complex setup, multiple modules, multiple themes, and multiple domains, all were crammed together. Then on design side, we were using Sketch, which was also not structured that well. Eventually, when we migrated our website to Drupal 8, all the things, like all the messy parts from Drupal 7 were as it is pulled into Drupal 8, which led to a lot of broken components, broken image styles, and a lot of inconsistency in our Drupal 8 project. So while we were dealing with all these issues in Drupal 8, we were also focusing on other aspects or other important things on the project, like improving accessibility, performance, and overall, we were working on improving the website's readability to our customers. Eventually, then, so although our theme had, after that, then we thought of we need an upgrade, and so we switched to Figma, because initially we were using Sketch, which was not maintaining our designs well. So when we switched to Figma, even then the things did not improve that well. We were still facing few issues, and since we had lot of SAS variables in our code base, so let me share a quick thing that happened on our project. So we used to have these funny discussions with everyone, since let me tell you, we have a huge team on this project. We are geographically located, like some of them are from South America, some of them are from India. So we all speak different languages, and the way of interpreting the way we interpret the colors is different, right? So we used to have these funny discussions, like, is this blue, or is this light blue, or it is teal? Like, these funny discussions didn't lead us to anywhere. So eventually, we needed a single source of truth in order to collaborate with designers and developers. So that's when design tokens came in for us. So when we switched to design tokens, just a minute, so you might be thinking, that worked for you, like you use design tokens and it worked well for your project. That doesn't mean we need to implement it on all the projects in order to improve the front-end workflow. So let me tell a quick example or a story that would illustrate why is proper design system needed for any project. So an ideal day on a project when designer is asked to create a CTA button in design. So that button is being used on multiple components. Like we usually use CTA button on hero banner or any other component. Like he creates a design, he styles it and gives some color to that button, say 00A3DA, and now these designs are shared with the developers on the project, that is developer A and developer B. Now developer A, being the smartest, thinks of creating a color variable for it and uses that color variable on multiple components. Whereas developer B, who is in a bit of rush, he thinks of, since this button is used only on 2 components, let me hard code it in those 2 components. We can look at it later on if it is used on multiple components. Now, after a few days, developer B moves to some other projects. So now this is something which happens with us every time, right? Now, the change request comes from the client that we need to update our base theme colors. So accordingly, even the CTA color gets updated. Now, designer being smartest, he updates the color for the CTA according to the client's requirement. Now, here there are 2 scenarios. Like either there could be an issue like designer might miss on updating it in all the instances where this button was initially used, or he would update it perfectly on all the components. And now when these designs are shared with developer A, who is already working on it, like he thinks like, I have already created a variable for it, let me just update the value of the CTA button so that it will eventually fix in entire website. So he does that, and now after working on like updating the variable, he makes sure like the website is then shared with designer. Now designer, as you can see in the image, he seems to be little upset or not happy with the implementation that the developer has done, because he can see a lot of inconsistencies across the website. Now what happened here was developer A, who had already used a variable, he did his job great. Like he just updated it, and the components which were using those variables were updated properly as per client's requirement. But the developer B, who had moved out of this project, had hard-coded the values in some of the components. So these things didn't get updated as per the client's requirement. Now, now it's the job of developer A to look for these inconsistencies throughout the website, make a note of it, and update it manually. So eventually, like, he gets frustrated because of the unwanted work that he has to do. So what we understand from this is that a proper design system or a single source of truth is something very important on every project. So that's when, like, this might be one of the reasons we thought of implementing design tokens in our project. But let me talk about few broader issues as well. Like this, like you can even say like this is something that every developer should do. Like they should create variables and use them in order to considering the reusability. Now this is not a real-time use case that would happen on any project. Now let me discuss about other broader issues which we usually face on any project, and those issues can be fixed with design tokens. Now let me give a quick example. So we usually have this component called hero on our projects, and so for example, designer creates a hero component which has text in right column and some image in the left column, and this component is being used on multiple pages, let's say home page, contact us page, or any other page. And we have another design which looks like hero, but it is not an hero component. You can consider it as a 2-column component, which also has the similar structure, like we have some text in the right column and image in the left column. But the styles here, like font sizes or content, is bit different. Like alignment is same, but the font sizes and colors used on this component are bit different. So these designs are now shared with the developer. Now, developer being the smartest, as we always think of reusability. Like we look in our code base whenever we get a task, like do we have a existing component which would match these design, even though it is written in designs, like it is a 2-column component. What we usually do in Drupal, like we check for like if we have a paragraph which has similar fields or layout. So being a developer, what he does is, he thinks of, let me use the hero component and style it differently for a about us page. Considering like some distinguishing factor, like I have some class specific to that page, I'll style this component like a 2-column component, but I'll make sure I'll use the paragraph, hero component on that page. Now what happened in this scenario is, since the developer styled this page differently, it led to inconsistency throughout the website, because the same component was being implemented on multiple pages and styled differently, which led to an issue. Like in future, if there are any changes happening on, like if there are any changes in the design, now even if I update the main hero component there, it won't be applied on all the pages because it was being styled differently. So which led to the issue like inadaptability to the design system changes. And as we discussed, like designer wanted 2 different components, but they lacked the context. Like designer and developer both were not on the same page. They lacked the context of having the same understanding of using these components. Another issue is that at times designers do develop designs, but they don't document it well. Or rather, in this case, designer didn't even create a documentation, because at times we feel like, why do we need documentation for such simple things? But with design tokens, the designs which are developed in design tokens, I'll have a quick demo around it, like how we can create a documentation in it. This design token allows us to create a documentation for each and every design that is being developed. So poor documentation leads to inconsistency, and collaboration between designer and developer is lost in between. So these are some of the issues which can be fixed using design tokens, and it can help you to improve the front-end workflow. Yeah, so what are design tokens? So some of us might have worked on Storybook or Pattern Lab, like other design systems. We have this atomic design structure there, atoms, molecules, organism. So design tokens can be considered as atoms in design system, because we can create design tokens for almost everything that we use for styling. Like we can create tokens for colors, line height, font sizes, like almost all the properties that we want to reuse throughout the code base. Like whenever we do the base theme setup, we create variables for. Consider design tokens as a part of variables. Like we can create tokens for fonts, then colors, line height, font families, and so on. Now what is, like you can ask me, like what is the difference between design tokens and local variables, because this is something that you can do in Figma as well. Now the design tokens can be created for multiple things, like it can be scaled. So for example, if I create a spacing token, it has certain base value like 16 pixels or something. Now I want to scale it further. So my token is SM-space. Like I'm giving a layman example here, but since this is the small variable, and if I want to update it to, like if I want to scale it for other screen sizes like medium or large, this can be possible. Like scalability can be possible through design tokens, which is not in the case of Figma. Now design tokens can be divided into 2 variations. That is, one is option design token, other is decision design token. Option design token contains all the raw values. So in case of fonts, you can store a pixel or rem value in it. For colors, you can have RGB or hex values, which will have directly the raw value. So in this example, you can consider font size 150 is referring to 0.75 rem. So font size 150 is a design token, option design token, which is being referenced by other decision design tokens. As I said, decision design token, name itself tells that it is going to tell you the purpose of using this design token. So as you can see here, button font size is referring to font size 150, right? So in this context, it is telling us that this is a font size token which is being used in context of button. So this is like we can divide the design tokens in these two variations, option design token and decision design tokens. Now moving forward, we have Token Studio. So Figma has got this cool extension or plugin, what we can say, which allows us to enhance its capability, because initially we used to create variables in Figma. So if I update the variables, it used to get updated on multiple components. But in case of Token Studio, we can create tokens for n number of things, which was not possible in case of Figma. So in Figma, we can create variables for colors, font sizes, and few other things. But Token Studio has got a huge list. Another benefit of Token Studio is real-time synchronization. So Token Studio provides us a way to synchronize with our sync providers like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. So Bitbucket is something that they have recently added a support for, but it is in beta version. So the tokens which you create in Token Studio can directly be synced with GitHub or any other sync providers. So that becomes easy, and the export that you get from Token Studio can be in XML or JSON format, which is not in case of Figma. Like you cannot export the variables that you create in Figma. So this is an advantage of using Token Studio. It integrates seamlessly with design tools. Since we are getting a JSON export, you can use that JSON export in any of the front-end technologies. Like you can directly use that JSON, create CSS variables for it, and use it with your Storybook or any other front-end technology that you are working on. Like it is interdependent, not at all dependent on any of the front-end frameworks. So this is an advantage. Also, since the tokens are managed in the central governance, because these tokens can be synced with Figma as well as GitHub. We will see like how it works with the development and all those things in upcoming demo. And scalability and modularity, which I already discussed. Like we can scale the tokens based on their base values in case of Token Studio. So basically we can dynamically create variables based on our requirement, which is not in the case of Figma. So I'll hand over to Nikita, who will discuss, showcase these features, how it works in Token Studio. Yeah. Over to Nikita.
Thanks, Sissy. All right, let's move on to a demo. The practical thing, let's see how it works. All right, so it's a pre-recorded demo. So this is a Figma. In the extensions, we are just opening the Token Studio extension. Takes a few seconds to open. These are all the tokens that are created. We have created these tokens in advance. So these are the color tokens that we have created. And now we are going to create one more color token. So you're just adding the name of the token, and then we'll choose one of the hex value from the color picker. Once we add this color token, there's a description as well, which is optional, but it's good to add description as well. At the bottom, you'll see that the orange 400 token is available there. Now we'll try to export these styles and variables in Figma. So we'll have to select the color, since color is the only thing that we have added. You can see 1 of 17, that means only one color token has been added. We'll export it to Figma. On the right hand side, you'll see that the color orange 400 has been added. In the settings, we'll see the sync providers. So like Asmita mentioned, there are multiple sync providers, GitHub, GitLab, and whatnot. There are some like Bitbucket and Token Studio that are in beta version. We'll try to do it with GitHub. So we'll add the name. Now for the personal access token, we'll have to go to the GitHub. And in the settings, we'll add the token. You can add any token you want, either the classic or the fine grain. We are adding the classic token here. So this is more like adding the purpose why we are creating the token for. And we'll generate the token. All these steps are also mentioned in Figma as well, how we can add a sync provider. This is a repo that we have created, and we have created a tokens.json and we have added some tokens there. So this is the tokens.json. There are two JSONs files. So we'll add the personal access token here. We'll add the name of the repository. Then we'll add the branch where we want to sync it with. And you'll see there is token storage location. So we'll add the name of the tokens file that we have created in our repo, which was tokens.json. And we'll save it. So since we already had few tokens created in the repo, it will ask if you want to pull this. So this is where I made a mistake and I pulled these tokens from the GitHub, and so I've lost the one token that I created before this, which is fine. We'll create another token quickly. So we'll go to the tokens again. We can add another token. We'll again add one color token quickly. So we are following the same process here. Earlier we added one orange color token. We are just adding one red color token here. And in the left hand corner, you'll see there are like border radius, border width and other things where you can reference this color as well. So you can refer each token in other variables, other tokens as well. So again, we synced it with Figma first so that we can see that the color variable is present in the Figma. And now you'll see that now we are pushing these changes to our GitHub. So we'll see only one color variable is here. It will also show how the JSON is going to look like. It will allow you to add a commit message. We'll select the branch where we want to push this new token that we have created, and we'll just push the changes. It'll take a few seconds, maybe 1 second. I think it will be done quickly. Yeah. So since we pushed it to the GitHub main repo, it is already pushed and merged there. We'll go back to our repo. All right. So we'll go to our tokens.json and we'll see if the new color variable is present there or not since we pushed it. So we pushed this red color and the variable was 100. So the value and color is here. So it was pushed to the GitHub. Now we'll open the code, our code base. So this is what the tokens.json look like. Every time you sync the tokens that you created in Figma with the code base, this is how the tokens look like. Now we are moving to the style dictionary. This is the preprocessor that we use to convert the tokens into CSS variables. So it has the config and steps mentioned in the main page as well. So we have just copied the same config.json here, and once you run the command, you'll see the transform group we have added CSS. So we want to convert these tokens into CSS variables. It will create this variables.css file with all the variables based on the tokens that we have created. So this was a quick demo. One thing you might have noticed that we created the tokens.json by default in the GitHub repo, and it seems like there is some issue with the GitHub, and we have raised this concern with the Token Studio community as well, that if you want to create all the tokens in the Figma, and then like if you are starting the project from scratch and we have Figma and we have created all these tokens, we should be able to merge those tokens in our code base, but that's not possible. It's throwing some error unless you create a tokens.json file with some random variables or some default tokens, then only it's allowing us to sync it with the Figma. So we have already raised the issue, and I think they have created a GitHub issue for it as well, and they are working on it. So this is again the same process that we have followed, how we integrate the design tokens into the development pipeline. So you can also create these Bitbucket, you can integrate it with the Bitbucket pipeline as well, or GitHub pipelines, GitHub actions as well, where every time there is some changes in the Figma tokens, we'll run the command and every time it will pull it from the Figma and create the variables from it. So went to the Figma first. Manually we'll have to edit the token, so designers will do that in case they want to change the value of a token, or in case they want to create a new token, they'll do that. Then using the Token Studio plugin, we'll just fetch those tokens in the JSON format using GitHub, GitLab, and there were other sync providers as well. And then using the style dictionary, we'll convert it into CSS variables. We have used it to convert into CSS variables, but as you can see, there are other formats available as well. And then on our local environment, we can use those CSS variables. Alright, so Token Studio versus Figma variables. So I think Asmita already talked about what is the difference between these two, but I'll quickly just revise those points. So the major difference is that variables provide more variability. You can keep changing the value of a variable anytime you want, but tokens are not variables. Tokens are design decisions, right? So you can create primitive tokens, you can create component-based tokens, and the best part is token also adds the context to the variable. Why are we creating that token? Is it going to be used for the primary CTA background color, or is it going to be used for the hero background, and things like that. So it adds a context there. Also, extensibility point of view as well. You can export these tokens and use it in multiple code bases or different design tools as well. Quick export, quick changes as well. So every time a variable is changed in Figma, it's very difficult to change it throughout the code base. And at times, if designers are not using variables properly as well, then in some part of the design, the variable would be updated, and the rest it won't be. And then there is too much back and through and question answers. But when it comes to token, once you update the token, it will be updated throughout the components that are created in the Figma and that are using this token. So it's very quick. So yeah, these were the few comparisons between variables and tokens. Now, why design tokens are essential for front-end development? First is consistency across designs and code. So like I mentioned, when we use style dictionary to create variables from the tokens, what happens is every context that we have added to create that token, it creates the CSS variable in the similar manner. So it will create a variable, for example, border, primary CTA border, and things like that. So it adds the context to it as well. And when we are going through the code base, it's easy to read and understand. And in case if developers keep changing or even designers keep changing, it's easier for that. And it also, maintains the consistency throughout the design system. The next is faster design updates. Now, being the developer, I don't have to change the color variable or any variable that's being changed in the design. I can simply just run the GitHub action and it will quickly fetch all the design tokens that are updated and create the variables or update the variables. And once the variables are updated, my design is also updated. The third is improved collaboration between designers and developers. So the back and forth conversation between designers and developers, that's also, we can get rid of that completely, at least in case where we are just updating the variables. Scalability for complex projects. When we are working on, let's say, multi-site projects or things like that, it becomes very difficult when we are having multiple themes or sub-theme architecture and we have to update a color variable or a normal variable throughout the themes. So this will make sure that it's scalable throughout the project. Enhance reusability and modularity. So since we know that once the tokens are created, we can also create like component-based tokens. So it's easy to reuse those throughout the design system. Adaptability to evolving requirements. Like Asmita mentioned, we can scale the variable, we can scale the tokens and things like that. So it's quick for it to adapt. Even in future, if we want to change the design system or we want to go for another tech stack, it's easy to adapt to the requirements. Great design system don't create unity, they enable possibility. So this code, talks about two very important pointers of the design system. One is usability and the enability. So when we talk about unity, basically to maintain the consistency throughout the design system, and we talk about possibility, basically allowing the designers to explore the design system and make changes in the design system and very easily. So yeah, so that was it. We are open for questions.
Good question. What happens when your designers delete tokens?
One by piece. It was right.
What happens when your designers delete? Alright, let's try again. What happens when your designers delete tokens and don't tell you about it? Like, does it delete that CSS variable when you automate the GitHub and then it just breaks your compiling, or does it not like clean stuff up?
Like it depends. If it is, it has real-time synchronization. In that case, it will affect your the sync provider, and it will get updated in your code base as well, and definitely it will break. But in our project, we didn't have the access to update the tokens, so those decisions were taken only by the designers. We used to get the JSON export, and we used to manually update it in our code base or push it to the GitHub so that it is available for all the developers. So that is something we will have to take care of, like while making updates in your design tokens or pushing or pulling the tokens, because as you can see, like we faced that issue in our demo. Like we created the token, when we tried to push it, it asked us whether you want to pull it. That time you should have said no, because the new tokens that were created got overridden. Yeah.
I have one more thing. Have we explored if there is any API or any sort of things given by Token Studio? Because right now, like the use case which I'm thinking is when designers are updating their tokens in the Figma, we still need to put a GitHub action integration to pull those tokens and then do a deployment, right? That's only when your actual CSS variables will be updated. But is there a possibility where designers update the token and your production side is directly looking at those tokens?
No, I think like the real-time synchronization doesn't work like that. Like I'll have to explore it, but definitely like it would have certain workflow. It won't get directly updated on production or something. Like because we do choose the branch name, right? So when we are syncing it with the main branch, we'll make sure that we are pushing it to some other branch rather than on the branch which is getting deployed on the production. So we can make sure while doing the deployments, we check all these things. Any other questions?
Are there any apprehensions from the front-end teams that you have noticed to adopt this system? Like, I mean, how do you ensure that the developers are open to this kind of an approach?
It is easy for developers too, right? Like they don't have to create the variables manually. So as and when there are updates in design, we just need to make sure that the references that we have in our code base are correct, because I think like being a developer, I won't have to create new variables. It will always make sure that the design tokens and the code base variables are in sync. Like in traditional methods, what we used to do, we used to get a Figma design, we used to manually check what is the hex code and create a variable and use that in our components. In this case, these things are getting automated. Like if it is getting updated in the design tokens or in our designs, it is already getting synced with our code base. So this step of manual errors or something that gets skipped. There are a lot of features in design tokens that even I haven't explored yet, like documentation and all those things. Like we can have another session which includes all those advanced features as well. So these cover the basic Token Studio features. In Pro version, you can create multiple themes as well, and these tokens can be shared across multiple projects. Like we can have dark mode, light mode tokens. So these features are available only in Pro mode of Token Studio. The features which I discussed today are the free ones that you can easily use on your project.
I have a question. How did you promote this within your company? Like how many developers are using? How did you make it like an ambassador for all your developers?
Currently, we are using only on one project, but in upcoming project, we are definitely going to promote it, or rather, we reuse the tokens that we already have in the token studio for the projects that are being developed from scratch, so that we can save on the efforts. Like raw color variables are something which are common to all the code bases, like spacing and all those. Colors definitely are different for each and every marketing website.
So I'll add one more point to it. So being developers, we are not creating the tokens in the Figma, right? So now it's up to designers, and designers are adapting to the tokens in Figma. So if they start creating tokens, we'll have to export those tokens and use it. And I've talked to a few designers, and I think they're really liking the concept of tokens, and they have started creating tokens and using those in the component that they're creating. So whenever we inspect the component and see what variable they are using, we see the tokens inside. So then we start using tokens. I think it has to start from the designers, and then we'll start using it, because if there is a design that has been created some time back and it has all the variables, I don't think anyone would have time to go back and then create tokens and then redo the entire work. But the new designs that are created by designers, they are definitely using tokens quite frequently, and so we are also adapting to it. And anyways, it's reducing developers' time. I mean, we don't have to manually create the variables. Also, like when we are using SAS, back then we used to create SAS variables. But this is converting it into CSS variables, which we can access throughout the project anywhere without, importing it. So which is good. I mean, this is the best of both the worlds, reducing a lot of time and maintaining consistency. So, yeah.
Thank you. That definitely will ease a developer's life. How do you persuade the designer or the leader of designer to allocate the time for designer to do that?
I mean, that's a good point, but so far the designers that I've talked to, they have themselves mentioned that they want to take this path and they want to create tokens to make sure that there's consistency, because at times there are multiple designers working on the design system. So to maintain the consistency, they themselves want something that makes their life easier as well, and then designs are not breaking once we implement it, because that's the most irritating part for us as well as for designers as well, when they create beautiful designs, but at times it doesn't come out as the same thing. It breaks. Components are using different colors throughout pages, and designers are not testers, so they are not testing our website, every page or every component. So it becomes very difficult for everyone that's involved in that process, be it developers, be it testers, and everyone. So far there has never, we have not faced a situation where we have to push designers to use tokens. They themselves have asked us that we want to follow this path, and we hope you are okay with it, because this is better thing.
I'm not a designer, but I have a question.
Okay. Sure. Even we are not designers. As you can see in the design, we have created a card component which doesn't have any context in it.
So our approach is we have a Drupal 10 website. It was built in Drupal 7 10 years back. We moved it to 8, 9, 10, where we are planning it to move to 11 next year, maybe in next 3-4 months. Our structure is we have a custom theme created from Bootstrap by our parent theme. We have .scss files, one for desktop, one for tablet, one for mobile. We are compiling it through SAS and GulpJS, so it is creating one single style.css file. Our client doesn't provide any Figma or PSDs, they just use the sample websites or some Excel sheet wireframes, and designer starts creating design based on that. So what is the starting point for the designers to use this approach? What is the easiest way you can suggest?
Okay, so in this case, again, I think this is a question more for the designers, but since we have worked with designers for quite a few years now, I think I can answer this. So see, this is similar to when front-end developers work on creating a design system. When we get a Figma with all the components and all the pages, when we are creating this component-based system, what we do is we identify the atoms, the base variables that we have to create, and then the components on top of it. So I'm here talking about the atomic design system, where we create atoms, molecules, and organisms. I think in this case as well, if designers are being given the reference of the few sites and based on that they have to create the design, I think they'll also have to follow the same approach. They'll have to understand the designs first, the reference websites. Then based on that, they'll create wireframe. And once the wireframe is set, they'll have to create the brand variables. So that includes brand colors, the spacing that they want to add, the typography, the fonts that they want to go with. And for that, they'll create the tokens first. And once the tokens are sorted, then they'll create the components on top of it. So I think this is the process that a designer would also follow, because there's no other option. They are just given reference websites. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll explore on this.
Sure.
Okay, hi. Is there any possibility to integrate the color token to storybooks?
Yes, definitely. So Storybook is nothing but a design system, right? So if we are creating a theme in Drupal and we are using Storybook to create a style guide, we use the same variables in Storybook and in Drupal as well, right? So tokens would help us integrate, or better sync those tokens with our code base. And once we have all the variables, we'll be reusing the same variables in Storybook as well. And like I mentioned, these are CSS variables, so we don't have to extensively import it in the Storybook. We can use it anywhere we want. So definitely we can do that. And Asmita has actually worked on a project where they are doing the same thing. They have a Drupal website and they are using Storybook to create a style guide and the design system as well, and then integrating it with the Drupal templates. So in case if you want to see an example or how it works, maybe if you can chat with Asmita after the session as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions? All right.
Thank
you
you
so much, everyone.